Before we dive into this mind-blowing tale of secrets and second chances, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a single twist. What if, in the most desperate moment of your life, you came face to face with the very person you tried hardest to forget? Meet Amelia Hayes. She's sprinting into the emergency room, her 4-year-old son, Leo, burning up in her arms. She fears losing him. But the shock of the illness is nothing compared to the one awaiting her. The attending physician is none other than Dr. Julian Cole, her ex-husband, and the father of Leo, a child he has never known existed. Prepare for a story packed with raw emotion, bombshell secrets, and life-altering decisions. You are about to witness a catastrophic reunion and discover just how far love can withstand the test of time and deep-seated bitterness. If you're already on the edge of your seat, smash that like button. Tell me in the comments, what would you do in Amelia's position? Flee or face the music? Part 1. The Storm and the Ear. The rain hammered down on Boston, turning the city's streets into a slick, mirroring surface that reflected the frantic yellow of the streetlights. The constant roar of the downpour seemed to amplify the terror gripping Amelia as she raced through the wet darkness. Leo clutched tight against her chest. Leo was gasping, his small body scalding with fever, his eyes half closed as if struggling to stay open. "Hold on, my love. Just a little longer," she whispered, her voice a thin, shaky thread, trying to project a calm she was miles from feeling. The taxi slammed to a stop outside Massachusetts General Hospital. Amelia almost stumbled as she exited, her heart pounding a terrifying rhythm, her soaked hair plastered to her face. The cab driver barely had time to close his door before she bolted across the lit entrance, holding Leo as if he were the only precious thing left in the world. Inside, the chaos was deafening. Groaning patients, nurses sprinting, the relentless chime of heart monitors, and the cloying smell of antiseptic mixing with pure fear. Amelia's voice was hoarse when she finally screamed, "Please! Someone help my son!" A triage nurse rushed over, collected a few frantic details, and guided her to a treatment bay. Amelia gently placed Leo on the cot, but never let go of his tiny hand. The boy was struggling to breathe, his small chest rising and falling in painful, shallow gasps. Amelia squeezed his fingers, silently pleading that it wasn't too late. Then the door opened, and her world froze. In a white coat, with a look of intense concentration, stood the attending physician. His hair was slightly disheveled, clearly from long hours, but those deep, intense brown eyes were unmistakable. Amelia felt the floor drop away beneath her. It was Julian Cole, the man she had loved with the fierce passion of youth, the one with whom she had built dreams and shattered promises, her ex-husband. The man who had walked away, taking not just their marriage, but also the chance to know the son, who now lay frail and vulnerable on that hospital bed. The shock hit them simultaneously. Julian froze in the doorway for a split second, unable to process what he was seeing. His eyes scanned Amelia in stunned silence, and then fixed on Leo. His professional mask cracked. The look in his eyes softened with raw, incredulous realization. The boy had a look that couldn't be ignored. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his mouth, even the way his brow furrowed in discomfort. It was like looking into a mirror, but this was no time for the past. Julian took a sharp breath, approaching with the professional composure demanded by years of experience. "We need to stabilize him now. Oxygen and IV access. Move!" he ordered the team. Amelia took a step back, her heart torn as she watched his every movement. She felt the fear for her son, but also the crushing weight of memories crashing over her like a tidal wave. The bitter arguments, the agonizing silence, the decision to never look back. And above all, the secret she had guarded so fiercely. Leo. Julian adjusted the oxygen, checked his pulse, and ordered the initial tests, but his eyes couldn't help but dart back to Amelia. There was anger, surprise, pain, and a silent question she knew all too well. When Leo finally began to respond to the treatment, Amelia released a shaky breath, leaning on the cot to keep from collapsing. Julian, breathing heavily, lifted his gaze to her. The words that left his lips were not just a question. They were an accusation, an open wound, a clash of pent-up emotions. "Amelia, this boy, is he my son?" The question cleaved the air like a bolt of thunder. Amelia's eyes welled up. Her hands started to sweat. Her heart pounded not just from the fear of the revelation, but because, deep down, she always knew this moment would come. For years, she had avoided thinking about their reunion. She had imagined 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 excuses, 1,000 ways to run. But now, facing that intense gaze, there was no escape. She tried to answer, but her throat constricted. The silence stretched, heavy with everything left unresolved between them. Amelia knew she was about to face the storm she had avoided for so long. Leo, unconscious, was breathing more easily, but his presence was the undeniable link that bound them together again. And Julian waited, his eyes burning with demand and agony. Part 2. The confession and the cost, and Amelia's chest burned as if she had run a marathon. Julian's question, or rather, his accusation, echoed inside her with an impossible force. Her heart beat so loud, it seemed to drown out every other sound in the room. She looked at Leo, still lying down, now breathing better thanks to the oxygen. Then, she faced Julian. His eyes were like sharp blades, firm, impossible to deceive. She tried to speak, but only a whisper escaped. "Julian, He raised his hand, cutting her off. "Don't give me excuses, Amelia. I'm not blind. His features, he looks exactly like me, even the way his brow furrows when he's asleep." Amelia looked away, clutching her son's hand, seeking strength. The memories hit her like a punch to the gut. Discovering the pregnancy days after the divorce, the fear of facing rejection, the silence she chose to protect herself. "I never meant to hide the truth cruelly," she murmured, tears welling up. "I was afraid, Julian. I had just lost you, and our separation was an open wound." Julian took a step toward her, his voice choked for a moment. "You stole my right to see my son born, to hear his first word, to be there when he took his first steps." Amelia's body trembled. There was truth in his words, and guilt crushed her. But she couldn't just accept the accusation. "And what about you?" she retorted, her voice firm despite the emotion. "Do you think I forgot the day you walked out the door without looking back? Do you think I don't remember the arguments, the words that tore me apart? I was alone, Julian, pregnant, terrified, and I didn't have the strength to believe you would support me." He drew back slightly, surprised by her resolve. The silence hung heavy. Then he took a deep breath and let slip something that seemed to have been stuck in his throat for years. "I tried to find you, Amelia, but pride and pain were stronger, and when I finally reached out, it was too late. You had moved." Amelia closed her eyes, allowing a tear to fall. "I feared that if I told you, you would deny him, say he wasn't yours. I couldn't bear that humiliation, so I decided to protect myself and Leo." But the anger in Julian's eyes softened, replaced by something more painful: regret. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing in short circles, trying to organize his thoughts. "Amelia, I would never deny a child. Never. You didn't give me that chance." His words echoed within her, tearing her in two. Before she could respond, a soft groan interrupted the discussion. Leo stirred on the bed, slowly opening his eyes. They both moved closer at the same time, instinctively. "Mommy," he murmured weakly. Amelia stroked his face, trying to smile despite her tears. "I'm here, my love. Everything is okay." But then his little eyes turned to Julian. There was curiosity, innocence, and a silent connection that seemed impossible to deny. The boy blinked a few times, as if trying to piece together a puzzle his infant mind didn't fully grasp. "Are you my daddy?" he asked, with the disarming naturalness only a child could possess. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Amelia brought a hand to her mouth, paralyzed. Julian, in turn, was motionless. His chest rose and fell erratically. It was as if all the arguments, all the bitterness, all the past had culminated in that single instant. He knelt beside the bed, looking fixedly at his son. His hands trembled as he held Leo's small ones. His voice came out low, thick with emotion, but clear. "Yes, Leo, I am your father." The boy smiled, still weak but happy, as if that simple answer was enough to fill a void he didn't even know existed. Amelia wept silently, her heart ripping apart with conflicting emotions: fear, relief, pain, and a spark of hope. Julian looked up at her, still holding the boy's hand. There was no more room for running, no more excuses. "Now I know the truth, Amelia, and no matter what you say, I'm not walking away again. Not from him, and not from you." You're watching the drama unfold. If this story resonates, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Don't forget to share this video. Part 3. The Reckoning and the Vow. The hospital room fell into a strange silence after Julian's declaration. Amelia felt her heart pound as if trying to escape her chest, and the lump in her throat made it impossible to speak. Leo, on the other hand, seemed satisfied with the answer. He settled into the pillow, clutching Julian's hand with an instinctive trust, and soon closed his eyes, overcome by exhaustion. Amelia remained standing, watching father and son together. The scene struck her deeply. For years, she had imagined this meeting, feared every detail. But now, seeing how naturally Leo accepted his presence, she felt stripped of all the justifications she had used to hide the truth. Julian stayed kneeling by the bed for long seconds, until he slowly rose, his expression a mixture of shock and contained anger. He walked to the window, moving away from Amelia to keep from exploding in front of the boy. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but firm, like a verdict. "You stole years of my life, Amelia." He didn't turn around, continuing to stare out at the darkness. "And more than that, you stole years of his life with me." Amelia bit her lower lip, fighting back tears. The pain she felt was not just from the weight of the accusation, but from the realization that he wasn't wrong. Even so, she had to defend herself. "I didn't steal anything, Julian. I protected him." He laughed, but it was a bitter, wounded laugh. "Protected who? Me? Him? Or just yourself?" The question hit her like a punch. Amelia closed her eyes and took a deep breath before finally letting the words she had swallowed so many times escape. "I was pregnant when you left. Do you remember that day?" His silence was the confirmation. Of course he remembered. The images returned with devastating force. It was a cold winter night. Amelia remembered the sound of the door slamming after another fight, the sharp words they exchanged like knives, Julian accusing her of not trusting him, she countering that she was tired of his absences, the endless shifts, their marriage taking a back seat. Both blinded by pride, both unwilling to yield. When he left that last time, her heart broke, but pride kept her from running after him. Days later, the test confirmed it. She wasn't alone. Amelia opened her eyes, facing him now. "I thought about finding you. God knows I did. But the fear was greater. I knew you, Julian. I knew pride would win. I was terrified you'd say the baby wasn't yours, that you'd call me a liar just to be rid of me. I couldn't bear that humiliation." Julian turned to her, and this time there was more than just anger in his eyes. There was pain, a raw, sincere pain. You think it was easy for me? Do you think I didn't suffer when I left? He came closer, his voice cracking. I went to sleep and woke up thinking about you, wondering if I had made the right decision, but when I tried to come back, it was too late. You had moved. Amelia swallowed hard, unable to meet his gaze for long. I didn't erase you. I survived. It's different. For a moment, they just stood there, breathing heavily, as if every word spoken reopened old wounds that had never healed. Then Julian took a step forward, closing the distance between them. His voice came out lower, imbued with a vulnerability she didn't remember seeing before. You didn't trust me, Amelia, and I didn't trust you either. Our marriage didn't end because of a lack of love. It ended because we let pride win. Amelia felt her eyes well up again. Part of her wanted to deny it, to scream that he was wrong. But deep down, she knew he wasn't. The memory of how they had drifted apart, without the courage to truly fight, was the proof. She leaned her back against the wall, exhausted. Maybe you're right, but none of that changes what I did. I hid Leo from you. I made a mistake. Julian approached even closer, stopping so near she could feel the heat of his breath. I don't want to hear you admit you made a mistake. I just want to know if there's still a chance to fix it. Amelia trembled. The weight of his words fell on her like a gale. Part of her heart screamed. Yes, that love had always existed, even hidden beneath layers of pain. But another part, wounded, still hesitated to believe. Before she could answer, the door opened softly. A nurse entered, smiling to see Leo sleeping peacefully. He's fine, just needs to rest now. She left without noticing the storm brewing in the air. Amelia let out the breath she was holding. Julian, in turn, took a step back, but his eyes remained fixed on hers. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just pain. It was a stubborn, living love, burning like a flame that refused to be extinguished. Part 4. The long night and the truth. The deep hours of the night dragged on in the hospital. The clocks ticking on the wall seemed to mock Amelia's anxiety, each second heavier than the last. She sat by Leo's bedside, watching her son sleep with still fragile but steadier breathing. She ran her fingers through his hair, clinging to the gesture to keep from falling apart. The door creaked softly, and Julian entered. He carried the fatigue of consecutive shifts, but his gaze was firm, decided. He had the posture of a doctor, but there was something different about him tonight. The expression of a father determined not to leave. He'll need to stay under observation for a few days, he said, his voice controlled. Routine tests, monitoring, nothing unexpected. But we need to be careful. Amelia nodded without taking her eyes off her son. I'm not leaving here. Neither am I. The answer was quick, almost cutting the air between them. She looked up, surprised. Julian, you have other patients, other commitments. You can't be stuck here. He approached, pulling up a chair and sitting on the other side of the bed. I've already lost too many years of his life. I'm not losing another moment. The silence that followed was dense. Amelia wanted to argue, but the firmness in his voice left no room. So she just watched. For long minutes, they remained there, on opposite sides of the bed, like guardians of the same treasure. Leo stirred in his sleep and let out a small whimper. Julian rose quickly, adjusted the pillow, and pulled the blanket up to the boy's chin. Amelia watched him silently. There was something so natural in the way he cared for his son that her heart ached. That scene was simultaneously comforting and painful, a snapshot of what could have been, snatched away by pride. Hours passed. The hospital, in its nighttime rhythm, grew quieter. Amelia got up to stretch her legs and walked out into the corridor. The cold lights illuminated the polished floor and the air smelled of disinfectant. She took deep breaths, trying to compose herself, when she heard firm footsteps approaching. "You're forcing yourself to endure more than you can," Julian said, stopping beside her. "I can tell." She crossed her arms as if erecting an invisible barrier. "I've endured it alone for years, Julian. This is nothing new." He faced her, and there was pain in his eyes. "It didn't have to be this way. If you had just trusted me." "Trust?" Amelia interrupted him, her voice thick with emotion. "Do you remember what it was like? The fights, the silence, the distance. I didn't even trust myself back then." Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I know I made mistakes, but..." His voice failed for a second before recovering. "But I never stopped loving you, Amelia. Never." The words echoed inside her like a lightning strike. Amelia looked away, feeling the tears threaten to escape. "Don't say that. Not now. I can't handle this while my son is like this." He took a step forward, closing the distance. "I know you feel it too. I saw it in your eyes today. When he called me Daddy, you didn't push me away because you didn't love me anymore. You pushed me away because you were afraid." She swallowed hard, trying to maintain control. "What I feel doesn't matter, Julian. Leo is what matters." For a moment, they simply stared at each other. The tension was palpable. Julian slowly raised his hand, hesitating before touching her arm. The warmth of the gesture made her tremble, reminding her how many times that simple contact had disarmed her in the past. "I'm not giving up," he said, firm. Almost a whisper. "Not on him, not on you." Amelia closed her eyes, breathing deeply, trying to find the strength to resist. But part of her was already yielding, even against her will. This man who had hurt her so many times still had the power to make her feel alive in a way no one else ever could. Before any answer could be given, a nurse hurried past them, casting a curious glance at the two. Amelia quickly moved away, returning to the room. She sat beside her son's bed, but the echo of Julian's words wouldn't leave her mind. "I never stopped loving you." Julian followed, saying nothing, and returned to his chair. They remained silent, watching Leo sleep. But there was something different in the air. A barrier had cracked, and no matter how small the opening, it already let through a light that Amelia could no longer deny. Part 5. Dawn, a promise, and the new crisis. The morning sun sliced through the hospital windows, filtered by the light curtains, and casting golden patterns on the floor. Amelia woke with her body aching from the uncomfortable position in the armchair. She straightened slowly and looked at the bed. Leo was sleeping peacefully, his breathing steadier, his face still pale, but calmer. Her heart filled with gratitude, as if his every breath were a victory. On the other side, sitting silently in the chair, was Julian. His eyes were tired, his face unshaven, but his presence was firm. He didn't look like a doctor on shift. He looked like a man keeping a vigil, someone who wouldn't allow anything to happen to his son. Amelia watched him for a few seconds, and a knot tightened in her throat. There was tenderness in that look, and it confused her even more. He noticed she was awake and held up a cup of coffee. "Brought you this. The cafeteria opened early." Amelia accepted it silently. The warmth of the drink contrasted with the cold she felt inside. She took a sip and sighed before speaking. "You didn't have to stay here all night." "Yes, I did," he replied without hesitation. "You still don't understand, Amelia. I'm not leaving him again." His words hit her like a blow. Amelia stood up and walked to the window, afraid to face him directly. The sun seemed to shine only outside. Inside her, there was a storm. "You talk as if it's simple, as if you can just decide to stay, and that's it." Julian stood up too, his voice heavier. "It's not simple, it never was, but it's necessary. I've wasted enough time, I won't waste any more." Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the tears sting. "You talk as if I'm the only one who made a mistake, But you left me, Julian. You made me believe I wasn't the priority. I raised Leo alone. I faced endless nights, bills, Kupa, all by myself. And now you show up and talk as if you can erase all that with a few words. Hitite approached, his face etched with pain. I don't want to erase anything, Amelia. I want to mend it. I know I failed. I was proud, blind. But if there's a chance to fix it, I'll fight for it. For you, for him. Amelia spun around abruptly, her eyes welling up. What if I can't trust you again? What if I believe you and you abandon me another time? I can't risk it, Julian. I can't put Leo on that emotional roller coaster. He took a step closer, closing the gap. His voice was firm but soft. I can't promise we'll never disagree, but I promise I won't run away again. Ever. Amelia felt her defenses waver. The memory of the man who made her smile so many times, who made her feel safe, mingled with the pain of the nights she cried alone. It was a suffocating conflict. The flame of love still burned, but the ashes of the past insisted on covering it. She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. You talk as if it's easy to forget what happened, but it's not. What I felt doesn't just disappear. Julian approached a little more until he was just inches away. I don't want you to forget. I want you to give me the chance to show you that I've learned, that I can be different. The silence between them was broken only by the beeping of the monitors. Amelia wanted to back away, but couldn't. She felt trapped by his gaze, by the warmth of his proximity, by the weight of everything that still existed between them. Before she could answer, the door opened. An assistant physician entered, looking serious. Dr. Cole, we need to talk about the boy's tests. Amelia froze, her stomach churning. What happened? The assistant hesitated, looking at Julian, as if unsure whether to speak in front of her. But Julian nodded. Go ahead. The results show a complication. His condition has worsened. We need to act fast. Amelia put her hands to her mouth, feeling the world spin. The floor seemed to open beneath her. No, my God, no. Julian gripped her shoulders firmly, trying to transmit strength. Amelia, look at me. His eyes burned with determination. I will take care of this, personally. She shook her head, panicking. What if you fail? I can't lose him, Julian, I can't. He pulled her closer, almost embracing her. I won't fail. I've never failed as a doctor. And now that I know he is my son, I will go beyond the impossible if I have to. Amelia wept uncontrollably, unable to respond. Julian's hand squeezed her shoulders, and there was an unspoken promise in that gesture, that this time, he wouldn't leave her alone. Part 6. The Fight for Life. The hospital corridor seemed longer than ever. The cold lights reflected on the polished floor, and the echo of the medical team pushing Leo's cot sounded like a war drum in Amelia's chest. She followed the movement, holding her son's small hand until the last instant, until the operating room door closed before her like an impassable barrier. The emptiness that followed was unbearable. Amelia leaned against the wall, her knees weak, her breathing ragged. Her heart screamed to go inside, but she knew she couldn't. Leo was now in the hands of medicine, in Julian's hands. Julian emerged shortly after, dressed in scrubs, a mask hanging from his neck, but his eyes were fixed on her. He approached, firm, without hesitation. I'll be in there. I'm taking care of him myself. Amelia gripped the sleeve of his scrub top, her eyes brimming with tears. What if something goes wrong? Her voice cracked, broken by fear. I can't lose Leo, Julian. I won't survive it. He placed his hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. I'm a doctor, Amelia. I've been in difficult situations. I've seen lives slip away by a thread, but it's never been my son. His voice choked, and for a moment, the mask of certainty almost fell. I will fight for him like I've never fought for anyone. Amelia closed her eyes, letting the tears stream. She had no choice. She could do nothing but trust. When he disappeared through the operating room doors, she was left alone in the corridor. Alone with her fears, her guilt, and her memories. She walked to the waiting room and collapsed onto one of the hard plastic chairs. The clock on the wall seemed to mock her, each second dragging into an eternity. She tried to pray, but the words came out broken by sobs. Her mind was assaulted by memories. Leo's first cry, when she held him and swore she would never let him go. The sleepless nights, rocking him with improvised songs. The day he fell, trying to walk and got up smiling, resilient even then. Each memory cut through her like a blade, accompanied by the paralyzing fear that it might be the last time. And then, like an inevitable wave, came the memories of Julian. The first kiss, stolen in a college hallway. The wedding full of promises, the days they laughed together, believing the whole world fit inside their love. And then, the fights, the harsh words, the slammed door, the pain of losing not just her husband, but her best friend. Amelia hugged her own shoulders, as if to protect herself from the loneliness. But the loneliness seemed to have its own voice, whispering, "You should have told him. You should have trusted him." Meanwhile, inside the operating room, Julian faced the most important battle of his life. Masked and gloved, sweat pouring under the intense focus of the light, he coordinated every movement of the team. His heart was in conflict. The cold mind of a doctor demanded precision, but the heart of a father screamed in desperation. Every beep of the monitor seemed to echo inside him. Every variation in the numbers was like a knife plunge. "Pressure stabilizing," one of the nurses reported. Julian kept his hands steady, but his welling eyes betrayed the weight of it all. "Not now. Not on my watch. I won't fail you, my son," he thought. "I lost years of your life, but I won't lose the rest." The hours felt like days. Amelia, in the waiting room, paced back and forth, unable to sit still. Every time the door opened for a staff member, she held her breath, expecting news. But none came, until, finally, the doors swung open, and Julian appeared. He walked slowly, pulling down his mask, his scrubs stained. Amelia ran to him, her heart in her mouth, unable to breathe. His expression was exhausted, but there was a light in his eyes. "He's fine," he said, his voice choking as a contained smile broke through. "Leo is strong. He will recover." Amelia brought her hands to her face, sobbing loudly, a cry that mixed relief and gratitude. "My God, thank you, thank you." Before she could stop herself, she fell into his arms. Julian held her tightly, as if that hug was the only anchor keeping them both grounded. He rested his chin on the top of her head, eyes closed, finally allowing himself to breathe. "He'll need care, monitoring, but he's out of danger." Julian's voice was low, but every word was a balm to Amelia. "Our son will live." The word "our" echoed within her like a powerful beat. For the first time, Amelia didn't just feel fear. She felt supported. She felt she was no longer alone in this fight. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. She said nothing. She didn't need to. The silence between them was charged with something new, or perhaps too old to be ignored. The certainty that, despite everything, love still existed there. Part 7. Dawn and a new beginning. The hospital room no longer felt as suffocating as before. The open curtains let in the morning sun, spreading a gentle warmth that contrasted with the cold nights Amelia had endured inside. Leo was sleeping on his side, his face resting on his small hand, breathing peacefully. The constant hum of the machines no longer sounded like a threat, but a reminder that the worst was over. Amelia adjusted her son's sheet, and allowed herself to sit in the armchair, her body still exhausted, but her soul relieved. As she watched Leo, a shy smile bloomed on her lips. For the first time since the storm began, she felt she could breathe without the crushing weight of fear. On the other side, sitting silently in the chair, was Julian. His eyes were tired, his face unshaven, but his presence was firm. He didn't look like a doctor on shift. He looked like a man keeping a vigil, someone who wouldn't allow anything to happen to his son. Amelia watched him for a few seconds, and a knot tightened in her throat. There was tenderness in that look, and it confused her even more. He noticed she was awake and held up a cup of coffee. "Brought you this. The cafeteria opened early." Amelia accepted it silently. The warmth of the drink contrasted with the cold she felt inside. She took a sip and sighed before speaking. "You didn't have to stay here all night." "Yes, I did," he replied without hesitation. "You still don't understand, Amelia. I'm not leaving him again." His words hit her like a blow. Amelia stood up and walked to the window, afraid to face him directly. The sun seemed to shine only outside. Inside her, there was a storm. "You talk as if it's simple, as if you can just decide to stay, and that's it." Julian stood up too, his voice heavier. "It's not simple. It never was. But it's necessary. I've wasted enough time. I won't waste any more." Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the tears sting. "You talk as if I'm the only one who made a mistake. But you left me, Julian. You made me believe I wasn't the priority. I raised Leo alone. I faced endless nights, bills, fear, all by myself. And now you show up and talk as if you can erase all that with a few words." Hituati approached, his face etched with pain. "I don't want to erase anything, Amelia. I want to mend it. I know I failed. I was proud, blind. But if there's a chance to fix it, I'll fight for it. For you, for him." Amelia spun around abruptly, her eyes welling up. "What if I can't trust you again? What if I believe you, and you abandon me another time? I can't risk it, Julian. I can't put Leo on that emotional roller coaster." He took a step closer, closing the gap. His voice was firm but soft. "I can't promise we'll never disagree, but I promise I won't run away again. Ever." Amelia felt her defenses waver. The memory of the man who made her smile so many times, who made her feel safe, mingled with the pain of the nights she cried alone. It was a suffocating conflict. The flame of love still burned, but the ashes of the past insisted on covering it. She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "You talk as if it's easy to forget what happened, but not. What I felt doesn't just disappear." Julian approached a little more, until he was just inches away. "I don't want you to forget. I want you to give me the chance to show you that I've learned, that I can be different." The silence between them was broken only by the beeping of the monitors. Amelia wanted to back away, but couldn't. She felt trapped by his gaze, by the warmth of his proximity, by the weight of everything that still existed between them. Before she could answer, the door opened. A medical assistant entered, smiling to see Leo sleeping in peace. "He's fine, just needs to rest now." Amelia let out the breath she was holding. Julian took a step back, but his eyes remained fixed on hers. The final emotional barrier had broken. In that moment, Leo stirred and opened his eyes slowly. When he spotted Julian, he opened a lazy smile. "Daddy, did you stay?" Julian smiled back, stroking the boy's hair. "Of course I stayed, champ, and I'm going to stay always." Amelia felt her eyes water. Leo looked happy, whole, as if he had always known Julian. "Mommy, is Daddy going to live with us now?" Leo asked, with the childlike naturalness that made the question still more poignant. Amelia froze. Julian, however, was quick. "I don't know how things will be yet, son, but I know one thing. I won't leave either of you. Never again." Leo smiled, satisfied. After a few moments, Julian broke the silence, looking at Amelia. "I know you don't fully trust me, Amelia, and maybe you shouldn't yet. But let me try, one day at a time. I don't want to return to your life as a storm. I want to return as a shelter." Amelia breathed deeply, fighting the torrent of emotions. She had fear, yes, but looking at Julian's commitment, she finally felt she could allow herself to believe. It wasn't a complete forgiveness, but it was a crack, a small opening that let the light through. Wait. The final choice. Hours later, the responsible doctor authorized Leo's discharge. The walk out of the hospital was symbolic. Amelia on one side, Julian on the other, and the boy walking between them, holding their hands. It was as if destiny were offering them a new chance. In the parking lot, Leo ran a few steps ahead, distracted by the cars. Amelia took the moment to face Julian. "So, what now?" she asked, her voice low, almost fearful. He took a step toward her, maintaining a firm gaze. "Now I want to prove I can be different, not just for you, but especially for him." "And what if I can't forget the past?" Amelia countered. "What if every time I look at you, I remember the pain of loneliness?" Julian approached, enveloping her with the weight of his presence. "I don't want you to forget. I want you to remember everything, but choose to believe that we can be better than we were." Amelia closed her eyes. The fear was still there, but so was the love. She knew she couldn't run forever. Leo ran back and grabbed both their hands simultaneously. "Let's go home," he said, with the innocence that united worlds. Amelia looked at Julian, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away. Their hands remained intertwined with their son's, and she let the gesture speak for itself. That night, at home, Amelia put Leo to bed. He insisted Julian stay in the room. The two sat beside the bed, listening to the boy talk about the future. "When I get better, can we go to the park? All three of us together?" "Yes, son, we can," Julian replied, stroking his hair. Leo fell asleep soon after. Alone in the living room, Julian looked at her. "I don't want to run from you anymore, Amelia. I know I'll need to win back your trust, and I'm willing to spend whatever time it takes for that." She breathed deeply. "And I know I'll need to learn to forgive. It won't be easy, Julian." He approached slowly. "Nothing that's worth it is easy." Amelia allowed the tears to fall. When she felt his hands hold her face gently, she didn't resist. The kiss that followed was not just an explosion of contained passion, but a silent promise of a fresh start. "I think I never stopped loving you either," she murmured. The meaningful conclusion. Months had passed since Amelia, Julian, and Leo left the hospital hand in hand. Life didn't return to what it was before, because there was no going back. A new path opened before them, with stumbles, but also with a promise of unity that would never be ignored. One sunny Saturday, Amelia watched Leo run after Julian, who was pretending to be a monster in a game in the backyard. The boy laughed with all his might. That scene, so ordinary, was everything she had ever dreamed of offering her son. The presence of a father. Amelia and Julian discovered that true love is not made of perfection, but of daily choices, of hands that find each other even after years apart, of promises that are reborn with more truth. Looking at Julian holding Leo's hand, she realized that destiny had been harsh, but also generous. It gave them the opportunity to meet again, not as they were before, but as people transformed by pain, longing, and hope. Because in the end, everything that matters are not the falls or the silences, but the courage to take one more step beside the one who never stopped dwelling in our heart. They finally understood. It wasn't just a fresh start. It was the beginning of the life that was always meant to be. If you were moved by Amelia and Julian's triumphant love story, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment. Amazing story, below to let me know you're with me. If this powerful story resonated with your heart, remember to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment "Amazing story" below to let me know you're with me. Let the world know that second chances are worth fighting for.